Thank you very much for the invitation and the opportunity to speak to you today. I'm really honored to be here. Our focus today will be on team coaching and resilience, and more specifically, how team coaches can support teams to be resilient in the face of conflict. As the challenges of the world continue, organizations expect teams to continue performing under new contexts and structures. The resilience of the teams is tested. The new conditions and uncertain situations not only increase the stress, but also have an impact on how teams address conflict. In this session, we are going to review how resilient teams look like, our role as team coaches, the connection between resilience and conflict, and give some practical ideas that we can apply. This first part is the video with my presentation, but we are going to make it more interactive. During this presentation, I will invite you to reflect on some questions, share your thoughts in the chat box or comment section, and we will co-create with your input from your experiences and knowledge. Before we dig in, let me ask you, what excites you about today's webinar? What excites you about today's webinar? Please use the chat box or comment section and write your reply. I will wait a few moments to give time to add your comments. And I thank you in advance for sharing with us. Now, may I ask you what concerns you have about today's webinar? What concerns you have about today's webinar? Again, please use the chat box or comment section to write your concerns. I always have, for example, the concern if the time will be enough. What about you? Again, I will wait a few moments to give time to add your comments. And my last question to you for now is, what are you hoping to get from the webinar today? What are you hoping to get from the webinar today? And again, feel free to add your replies to the chat box or comment section. And I appreciate your sharing and thank you again for your replies. Moving on, this is an excerpt from the article, Make Space for Grief After a Year of Loss, that Giampiero Pettiglieri, Associate Professor of Organizational Behavior at INSEAD, wrote for Harvard Business Review in December of 2020. It's been a year of losses, lived and feared. We have lived worrying that someone we love, now distant, might die alone. We worry about losing jobs and opportunities to be with each other. Loss always makes us remote. This year that we have lost loved ones, work and proximity to each other, even more so. It takes enough space to come back together and to life. One of the reasons this resonates so much with me is because in 2020, I lost my mother. For 10 years, my mother went in and out of hospitals. Sometimes we didn't know if she was going to make it. We would receive phone calls in the middle of the night and we were ready to jump into the car and head to the ER. She would be transferred every time and be with her at the hospital for days or weeks. While in the corridors of these hospitals, I learned to keep working. I would reply to emails, write articles, manage projects, collaborate with teams, and so on. I would breathe and carry on. I had taught myself to stay calm and focused under pressure, under any kind of pressure. That's something that I had learned from a young age, and it had been valuable when facing a crisis. Until the beginning of 2020, once again at the hospital for weeks. But this time my mother didn't make it, and I had to find again my ability to adapt to such a loss and carry on. Since last year, my life is again divided in hospitals. This time for me, my chronic illness and disability. New losses of my life before, a new adaptation to painful treatments, continuous tests, and ongoing uncertainty. My doctors wonder how I can remain so calm and patient, but my doctors don't know our profession. These past years have been years of losses. People lost loved ones, jobs or ways of working, balance, work hours, social connections, and more. What about you? What have you lost in these years? If you want, you can share again in the chat box or comment section. And please, do it without any judgment about your loss. Don't think if it is something important enough to share. All losses are valid. And what about your teams? What have your teams lost this year? On the collective level, as teams, what were their losses? You might have heard of the mental health pandemic as a result of the COVID pandemic, but it pre-existed the pandemic. In this chart, we see the global rise of unhappiness based on Gallup's global research. The negative experience index measures 5 negative experiences: anger, stress, sadness, worry, and physical pain. According to Gallup, unhappiness has been increasing globally for a decade, and its rise has been missed by almost every world leader. That's because while leaders pay close attention to measures like GDP and unemployment, almost none of them track people's well-being. And as we're going to see, well-being is one of the components of resilience. At the same time, we have teams whose members experience anger, stress, sadness, worry, even physical pain. How resilient, especially when facing conflict, these teams can be when their members experience this. So, what do we do? How do we move on? How do we keep our teams resilient, productive, focused, optimistic, and connected? Let's first agree on how we define resilience. Psychologists define resilience as the process of adapting well in the face of adversity, trauma, tragedy, threats, or significant sources of stress, such as relationship problems, serious health problems, workplace or financial stressors. As much as resilience involves bouncing back from these difficult experiences, it can also involve profound personal growth. Fundamentally, resilience is understood as referring to positive adaptation or the ability to maintain or regain mental health despite experiencing adversity. While certain factors might make some individuals or teams, in our case, more resilient than others, resilience isn't necessarily a personality trait that only some people or teams possess. On the contrary, resilience involves behaviors, thoughts, and actions that anyone and any team can learn and develop. Like building a muscle, increasing resilience takes time and intentionality. This is the Resilience Capabilities Model of Roffey Park Institute. According to this model, necessary capabilities for resilience are One, perspective. It includes, among others, the ability to positively reframe negative experiences and find opportunity in adversity, in our case, in conflict. Two, emotional intelligence. It includes the acknowledgement of own feelings and express them appropriately. Number three, purpose, values, and strengths. Having a clear sense of purpose, of personal strengths, and the collective strengths of the team, a clear sense of values, of the team's values, and of behaviors consistent with these. Four, connections. It is about having a strong and reliable network of colleagues that will help you through difficult times, in our case, inside and outside the team, the network. And finally, five, managing physical energy. Often neglected, it includes exercise regularly, getting enough sleep, eat healthy, and making time for activities that give joy or help us relax. In this slide, you can see an overview of the model with questions that you can ask the team for each one of these capabilities. And most of them provide excellent points of reference when your team faces a conflict. For example, emotional intelligence. How to support team members to acknowledge their feelings and practice self-management in the difficult conversations. Or managing their physical energy. It is more difficult for a physically exhausted team to have constructive debates and disagreements. We cannot expect from an overworked team to manage conflict smoothly. But are these characteristics enough when the team faces conflict? Last year, we used LinkedIn to ask the question, what are the most important characteristics of resilient teams? The majority replied that trust and safety is the most important characteristic. The importance of psychological safety is confirmed by the data collected by Neurozone, as we can see in this chart, where psychological safety is the first predictor of team resilience. But how resilient teams look like in practice? They are persistent under difficult circumstances. Difficult circumstances are inevitable. We have unplanned change, tight deadlines, poor planning, underperformance, conflict as a result of these circumstances or other, and more. How the team responds to these circumstances is a measure of their resilience. Do they push through or do they become dysfunctional? They are optimistic with a forward-looking perspective. I prefer the word confident instead of optimistic. A team with an optimistic outlook will focus on the outcomes thereafter when a problem or conflict arises. This is a better approach than to dwell on the causes of the problem. If the team isn't inherently optimistic, it's up to the team leader or the team coach, in our case, to set the tone. They positively adjust to changing situations and respond to setbacks effectively. We mentioned persistence earlier, but you need more than persistence. You need to be effective. Teams may be working on a project or process that has a set path. What happens if an external factor interrupts that path? Sometimes the set path has detours, so teams should be ready to take a detour when needed. They have a high level of self-awareness among team members. This is a critical quality to foster on an individual level. To foster self-awareness as a team is incredibly powerful. It's when team or team members are under stress or conflict that it is harder to maintain self-awareness though. Having a language where team members can communicate without judgment is valuable here. For example, members reference their observations with the phrase, I am observing a lot of X in this meeting, where X in their observation can be, for example, tension. They self-regulate temperament and are supportive and encouraging. This follows on self-awareness and is more concerned with the response to situations than the awareness of them. The business environment often fosters competitiveness even within teams. While competition can be positive, if it is at the expense of support and encouragement, then it is counterproductive. They take active steps to work on their well-being. This includes not only their physical wellness, but their emotional well-being as well. They have shared values and purpose. Values are clearly defined, and team knows their importance, and there is clarity of purpose, what they do, for whom and why. Then it becomes easier to align team's efforts and to be effective. And at the heart of it all, they have psychological safety. We touched upon the connection between resilience and conflict, but what resilience has really to do with conflict? Teams that are more resilient are likely to try to manage conflict in a constructive way and learn from it rather than avoid it. Teams that are less resilient are more likely to avoid conflict rather than manage it. And we all know that this is never a good strategy in the vast majority of cases. Improving resilience can improve conflict resolution, and improving conflict resolution skills can enhance resilience. These two go hand in hand. The key skills to positively manage conflict include many factors that are common to high resilience. Conflict resolution is seen as an opportunity to learn from a difficult or challenging situation. A question a team coach can ask is, what this situation can help us learn? When coaching through conflict, the team coach helps team members to better understand differences, their diversity, how each person contributes, and how to better manage these situations in the future. Again, by asking these questions or using the appropriate tools. To manage expectations, understanding the reality of the situation, what is in their own control, and to have the confidence to take steps towards resolution. Communication skills and the ability to really listen with compassion and empathy, I will add. The team coach models these communication skills, especially effectively when working with a co-coach. The skills to acknowledge, understand, and manage emotions. The team coach creates space for this. This links to their skill of response to a conflict rather than get hooked emotionally and become reactive. As team coaches, we want to be compassionate because triggers can come from their history as a team or their personal story. To accept the inevitability of conflict and welcome the challenge to constructively manage it. This is an important skill leading to healthy relationships and cultures, and something that a team coach needs to remember. Conflicts are inevitable, and part of our work is to confidently help the team learn how to constructively and fearlessly address it. This is the fourth team coaching competency of the ICF team coaching competency model. It tells us that the team coach may need to encourage team members to speak freely in team meetings to share their individual feelings, perceptions, concerns, beliefs, hopes, and suggestions. Team members will not do that in an environment where they do not feel psychologically safe. For each team member to participate freely and meaningfully, the team coach must build a safe space within which each team member feels free to disagree with teammates or raise sensitive topics. In this slide, we can see them more clearly. The last sub-competency tells us that the team coach partners with the team to identify and resolve conflict. This cannot happen unless we have created a space of trust and safety. Now, talking about psychological safety, let's debunk some myths. Psychological safety is not about being nice, but about being respectful. It's about the confidence that vulnerability, openness, and kindness are welcome. No one likes not knowing, not being right, asking for help, reporting mistakes, or failing. Yet, according to Amy Edmondson, these are all the behaviors that we see in organizations that innovate. It is not about protecting people, but the quality of conversations. It is not the opposite of risk-taking, but an enabler of experimentation. It is not about eliminating conflict. In fact, we want to encourage conflict, to encourage productive intellectual conflict, and we want to remove the fear of retaliation. Now, let's see the connection between contracting and psychological safety. Contracting refers to an adult-to-adult agreement between two or more parties. As team coaches, we know that the way we show up determines the way people, the team in our cases, feel. The way they feel determines the extent to which they can engage. We cannot engage if we feel unsafe. And that impacts pretty much everything about the outcome of that relationship. So, how can we show up in contracting? First, by keeping in mind the importance of contracting. One of the reasons is that when addressing conflict, we guide the conversations within the confines of the well-established contract. My favorite model of contracting is by Eric Bernett, in which he describes three levels. One, the administrative contract. This is the agreement on the administrative aspects of the process. For example, when and where will we meet for the sessions? Two, the professional contract. This refers to the aim of the program. With the team, we cover the purpose of the coaching program. What are we here for? And what the roles of all the parties are. And finally, the psychological contract. This deals with the possible underlying issues, attitudes, expectations, hidden agendas, hopes, desires, concerns, and ground rules. If this aspect is not discussed openly, it can jeopardize the task. Always, we co-create. We can make simple questions like, what are your personal expectations from our work together? That's a simple way to learn about their agenda. Or, what are your hopes? What excites you? What concerns you have? Like the questions we had at the beginning of this presentation. In this level of contracting, we co-create also with the team the ground rules. You may have heard them as agreements or rules of engagement. The questions here to ask the team are, how do we want to work together? What do we need to set as our agreements to make this a safe space for you and others? We can also ask for more specific scenarios. How do we want to manage disagreements? These are the rules and norms, the standards that the team co-creates as an entity and can serve as a reference or reminder of behaviors when facing conflict. The biggest mistake is to underestimate the importance of contracting and either skip it or not dedicate enough time for it. How to create more psychological safety from the beginning? Be open and vulnerable first. Tell your own stories. Be willing to be exposed. Model that and stay committed to openness in action. Ask team members what they need. Cultural and other differences demand that we ask and we do not assume what would make someone feel safe. Show care, interest, and curiosity. It's not okay not to be interested to what others are thinking and needing and not want to learn more. And be humble. I'm going to show you now another favorite tool of mine, the diversity iceberg, that I have used many times to create awareness on the team diversity, and I use it to indirectly address conflict. I usually co-create this with a team. I ask the members what is above the surface, what can be in the sea line, and what is below the surface. This process helps them realize their diversity with a different lens and understand better each other's behaviors. That way, they can appreciate instead of compete on ideas or approaches. Another tool that I love is the square wheels of Scott Zimmerman. I can show this illustration to a team and ask them, what do you think your square wheels are on this topic? Or name the square wheel of the day. This gives a different vocabulary to the team. Without pointing fingers or blaming, they can just stay neutral, reflecting on their square wheels, which can be disagreements or other sources of conflict. They have these conversations, and at the same time, they are invited to think about the round wheels to replace the square wheels, aka focusing on solutions. Closing this presentation, let's review some basic tips. Establish safety is a must-have for team success. Agree the team's rules and norms that reflect safety and also help them know how to deal with difficult situations or act as reminders. Model this in your interactions with team members, with vulnerability being the number one. At the beginning of the work with a team and at each session, check in with the team, emotionally connect with them. As a coach, it is imperative that you let team members know that it's okay to be human and they don't have to put a brave face on all the time. With an attitude of caring, team members can check in with each other without feeling they have to be defensive or pretend they are okay when they are not. This doesn't mean you always have to find a solution. Sometimes you need to notice we are under stress, and that's enough. It's when problems go unacknowledged that they get out of hand. Help them be mindful of their well-being and self-care. In critical moments, we should go back to contracting, either for review or for recontracting. And that's the end of this part of the presentation. This is where you can find me, and feel free, please, to connect with me. And I think now it is time for some questions live.
So, hello. Thank you, Katerina. So, I'm so sorry to hear about your mother. So, I hope she's rest in peace. And I hope you can take care of yourself. So, if you need any help, we'd love to offer the help. Yes.
Thank you.
So, thanks. Yeah, thank you very much for your fantastic speech. So, I think there are several comments in the chat box.
Okay.
So the first one is how to resolve conflict. So do we need to resolve it, to cope with it by establishing a reward and punishment mechanism, or through casting pressure from power, the hierarchy.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. So if I understand correct, how to
Yes.
resolve conflict if we resort to reward and punishment as a strategy,
Yes.
or if pressure from the hierarchy is better.
Yeah, it's suppress somebody by powerful, by hierarchy, the pressure.
Here is the thing. I don't believe in punishment. I believe in boundaries. And it's like if we say, oh, what we do with conflict, we don't see conflict as a symptom. It's like, oh, I have fever. Yes. Why? What is the reason I have fever? And then I will know how to, deal with the fever. So it's like, okay, conflict is what I see. Is what we have at the tip of the iceberg. It's just, something that happens, an incident. Okay, so what is below that? Is, for example, a lot of pressure for some reason. Okay, what is this pressure causing to the members of the team? Or is it because there are some biases and assumptions that create friction between the members? It can be because the co-workers have different working style and learning style. So one, for example, prefers to first reflect, work alone, then move on to the team. Another one says, no, let's move on. We definitely need to work together from the beginning. So like, one needs space and reflection, the other needs togetherness and action. And that can create conflicts. Those are simple examples. It's, if we punish, it's as if we are punish people for who they are. If we punish their feeling of frustration, or if you punish their feeling of stress, of anxiety. And that's why we say, like, okay, provide the space to acknowledge these emotions. So for the team coach is to stay observant and say, okay, I notice tension, for example. What's going on? And they start saying, okay, this is how I feel. There is a trick here. Sometimes if people cannot speak about emotions, how they feel, we can talk about the body. Like, okay, do you feel tension in the body? Yes. Where do you feel the tension in the body? Or sometimes I give the wheel of emotions or the umbrellas of Susan David, and there are emotions already there. And I say, okay, can you identify what emotions are closer to you now, how you feel? So we start by validating our feelings, how we feel, what is the state that we are here. And from there, we move on. Because, I don't know, it's like in physics, when you have friction and more friction and more friction, it explodes. For me, punishment is like adding to that friction, or trying to make the other person feel guilty or blaming for what is happening. So I don't believe this is the most helpful strategy. Now, if we're talking about rewards, we want to understand what is exactly that we're rewarding. Let's reward by celebrating when we meet our deadline. Yes, and everybody is included in this celebration, and everybody is proud and happy for the team. Or do we reward a behavior. But here, again, we are judging behaviors. So are we encouraging the people to be really authentic? Or, and be authentically kind with each other, or just have the facade, okay, you know, I will look nice. I will look compliant. But that doesn't solve anything. And the point here is that with the resilience, the sustainability. So it's not just addressing the conflict, managing the conflict, but in a sustainable way. Because you remember, resilience is bouncing back and growth. So it's not just bouncing back from the conflict, but also what's the growth that we have gained. And with growth, you have the sustainability of the situation. Also, the team learns what to do in the next time. The next time that another conflict, another disagreement emerges, what we do then again. So that's a part of the growth and the sustainability of the results. I hope I answered the question.
Yes. Yeah, I think it's a long answer, so I will summarize from what you have said.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes.
I thought it was at the same time. Oh my God. I'm so sorry.
It's okay, it's okay. 刚刚就是在那个聊天框里面有人提到，就是如果我们面对冲突团队之间的冲突一般是如何解决的？我们是诉诸于奖惩机制呢，还是说就是用权力施压，就是让那刚刚就是刚刚 Katerina 她提到她是不太赞成惩罚机制的。她刚刚是通过2个部分来就是回答她的内容。第一个，她讲到了惩罚机制，首先呢，她觉得惩罚机制是不提倡的，因为就是她觉得在面对冲突的时候，首先我们就要了解一下什么这个冲突是什么，然后就像冰山一样。表面上是个冲突，但是在冲突之下背后隐藏着很多很多的因素，所以我们应该要去了解这个背后的原因是什么。那可能是有压力，那什么导致了这个压力呢？那可能是因为偏见那是什么有偏见导致了就团队之间的分裂呢？那因为人与人之间，比如说举个例子，他们就是本来就是有不同的学习和工作方式的。那有人习惯单人去作战，有人呢是喜欢团队合作作战，有的呢他会就是节奏会慢一点，有的人他会不断的 push 不断的前进，不断的就是为了完成目标向前进。那如果我们就是面对冲突的时候，就是通过惩罚的机制的话，那么就很可能会让就是团队会感到很沮丧，会感觉到不安全，会感觉到威胁感。那所以说我们就是应该要创造一个安全，然后又就是很安全的环境和自由的空间，让他们意识到发生了什么，你的感受是什么。那如果有些人呢，他一般感受不到自己的感受，就是不能诉说自己的感受和情绪，那可能就会，那可以就是建议你呢，就是更加的就是诉诸于自己的身体。那我的哪个身体会感觉很紧张、很紧绷，它其实也是一种情绪的表现。就比如说 David 他有一个理论，就是情绪的一些就是参照。那我们可以拿着那个就是 David 的这个情绪参照就可以就是问对方，现在就是你在这些情绪面前，你觉得你现在的目前的状态是什么样子的？就是帮助大家去找到自己的情绪状态然后就感觉到自己的情绪状态，并且就是找到就是自己的情绪是什么种类之后，也要知道自己在这个情绪就占比有多大。就是比如说我现在是愤怒的状态，那我到底愤怒有多少呢？那个比率要知道，状态要知道。那如果我们找到了自己那个是什么状态之后，我们就应该要就是往前进了。因为我们如果总是不断的就是互相之间产生摩擦，那就会可能像就是就会产生它形容是爆炸可能是团队之间的关系就会爆炸开来，就是可能会产生不好的影响，那就是各种会吵架呀，或者各种冲突等等等等。那关于就是奖励制度， 关于奖励制度呢，Katerina 她觉得可能就是比如说我们是那首先要知道什么是奖励呢？可能是我们庆祝，为这个团队庆祝感到很快乐，也可能是为就某人的行为去就是提供奖励。那其实最重要的是我们要真诚的对待彼此如果是只是为了奖励而奖励，没有解决根本的问题，它不是一个长期的措施，那它只是一个短期的减缓或者是也不是消除，只是短期的减缓冲突的一种方式。按照长期的角度就可持续发展的角度和团队成长的角度，我们更应该关注深层次的原因，并很好的解决它。So here's another question. It's about so you said resilience is the process of adapting well. So how can we measure it? For example, there's a person named Alice. So Alice is sad because of a big challenge or a big difficulty, but she recovered soon the next day. So I believe she's definitely resilient. But how about after a week, after 3 days, after a month, after 3 months? So how can we define the resilience and the state of being resilient? How to measure it?
There are some assessments that we can do if we want to measure resilience. There are assessments like the assessments of emotional intelligence. So there are assessments. There are also, if I'm not mistaken, self-assessments that we can take to measure our resilience. I will pause here and wait to continue.
Yeah. So 就刚刚一个问题是如果一个人他就是遇到了巨大的挑战或者是困难，但是他可以在第二天就可以恢复过来，就是关于就是沮丧的心情可以恢复过来。那相信大家都觉得他是比较就是有韧性的比较有复原力的。但是如果就是但是我们通常是怎么样去衡量一个人是否有韧性？这个韧性是怎么去衡量他的？如果他在遭受到挫折之后是1周才恢复，1个月之后才恢复，3个月之后才恢复，或3天后才恢复，那什么是真正的有韧性呢？那刚刚就说到，其实Katerina 回答到有很多的评估和测试，情商测试一些自我测试就可以帮助你测试到你在就是你的就是韧性度是怎么样的，你的韧性能力是怎么样的。Yes, please go on.
I would say the question will be also, what do we need to measure? Is it just our resilience our ability to resilience that we need to measure? And why? Also, if we have an intention, what is the intention or the motivation behind that? Personally, I'm very curious about my own resilience. People tell me, oh, you're very resilient. And I was receiving that feedback from many different people, and I had to make the reflection, also did some self-assessments to say, oh, okay, maybe I am.
Yeah.
I wait and continue.
Yeah. 首先我们要知道，我们就是要衡量什么呢？是衡量就是关于韧性度、韧性能力，还是为什么呢？就是那我们就是韧性后面的动机是什么？那我们的就是一些意图是什么？我们的目标又是什么？那有时候Katerina 她也很好奇自己的就是韧性的能力到底是什么度因为她经常在生活中会听到别人就是评价她是一个很有韧劲的人，是很有复原力的一个人。那她每次听到这种反馈和这种评价之后，她也会就是觉得我可能是一个有韧劲的人，所以她也会去做一些测试去证明自己是一个就是有韧劲的人。
And in going back to what is the intention behind measuring the resilience, or what exactly do we need, we want also to pay attention that each one of us is different. For example, in the model of the resilience capabilities, with perspectives, emotional intelligence, purpose, value, strengths, connections, managing physical energy, we can be at a different stage in each one of these. For example, I can be very good at, in terms of perspectives, to positively reframe something, but I might miss connections. So the other thing that we need to pay attention is like, okay, which of the elements we need to reinforce or to pay more attention, and how?
OK，所以我们应该要关注我们要关注就是关于韧性背后的目的，就是测试这个目的是什么我们的需求是什么你要知道每个人他是不一样的。就刚刚我们在 PPT 中提到的那个 module 就是韧性能力模型，那我们可以看到有五大的有视角，有关于情商的，有人际关系的，还有你就是管理体能的这种能力等等。那就是每个人，那每一个指标它其实都有不同的水平的。那就是比如说，如果一个人他就是在视角这方面做的比较好，因为他总是很积极的去考虑问题，有积极的视角去看待事情，但是呢，他可能在人际关系方面可能有点欠缺。那就是所以说每个人他是不同的状态每个人指标他也不一样，所以说我们要就是了解这些不同的一些元素和不同的一些级别，你要知道自己想在哪一个方面要去提高或者是去促进，这样有针对性的。
And finally, it's the element of not just bouncing back. For example, I'm sad, like, I'm very sad, or something has happened that has really shaken me, and I might lose trust in the leadership, for example. It's like, okay, if I am able to reframe, to see the big picture, to use my support structures, the network, take care of my energy and come back, will there be any growth, and what kind of growth?
Yeah，就是所以说针对于这些不同的元素和一些不同的指标，那就有些人他可能就是可能在感到就是很悲伤，或者是被某些事感到很震撼或者是比如说对于就是一些领导层失去信任等等等等问题之后他应该要去就是针对于不同的一些措施、不同的一些元素去做处理。比如说，我可能需要提高自己的能量级，比如说我应该要把眼光放得更全面一点，等等等等，来去提高自己的韧性。
Thank you. I mentioned something else came to my mind. I mentioned in the previous question the word boundaries. So resilience is, yes, resilience is not about being tolerant. Okay, yeah, there is a degree of tolerance, but it's like I can tolerate what happened, and I can come back, because there is the need of boundaries. For example, I am a member in a team. It is forming recently, and the rules have been breached. So should I just, let's say, suck it up and tolerate that, or speak up and say, no, these are the boundaries. These are the commitments that we have said that we want to keep here. These are the respect we owe to each other, for example.
Yeah. Katerina 还提到一点就是界限感。那人呢是要有界限感的， 而且有韧性不代表容忍容忍某事或是某人就是他是，比如说他最近他就是有一个新的形成的一个团队，然后关于这个团队呢，他就需要新的规章制度去让大家组成起来。那有的人可能对于这种有些人际一些关系或者是工作上面的一些规则他可能就是觉得能接受就容忍了。那有的人呢，他就会觉得这个我不能接受，他就会大声的表示出来这就是所以人要有自我意识，要有界限感，而不是一味的去容忍等等，这不是任性的表现。So thank you, Katerina. So I have a question from my side because you said a person should be persistent. Being persistent is not enough. We should be persistent and effective, right? So I heard the story recently. So one PhD student, let's call him Tom. He's one of the mentee of his mentors. So frankly speaking, because of Tom's badly mental health and physical health, so he better to withdraw from the school. So, but he's persistent with his study. So, however, this is the final year. If he cannot graduate, so he will be forced to withdraw from school. So then, his mentor cannot have any mentee in 3 years because of Tom's situation. So the mentor is afraid of his career path. So he asked other mentees to give suggestions, like hope Tom. They suggest Tom to withdraw from school. So I think there must be a tension between Tom and those mentees, and the tension between mentors and mentees. So what do you think of this situation, and what do you think is the best way to give suggestions to Tom or to the mentor or the other mentees?
Okay, this is out of my expertise. So
this is
Tom,
a real case. Yeah, it's a real case.
yeah.
So Tom.
So Tom has a challenge and cannot continue with his mentor, and the mentor is requesting the help of other mentees. That's the question, the bottom line.
Yes, it's similar. I think Tom has difficulty with his study, not the mentor.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh, this is definitely not my expertise. So is it known where the difficulties from Tom are coming from? So one is a question.
So let's get back to your expertise. So Tom is persistent in his study, but other mentees go to give the suggestions. Tom, you should withdraw from the school. So, but Tom is in the bad health and bad physical health situation. So I think there must be tension, there be conflict between these people. Yes.
Oh, so the other mentees are feeling that Tom is keeping them behind? Is keeping everybody. So are they working as a team and they feel that he's keeping them behind?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. It's like I would say, where is compassion here? It's like, oh, like what is at stake for everyone? So, talking about perspective, asking the mentees, the mentors that could ask the mentees how else they can see this situation, or because he's their mentor, he or she can ask, can suggest other perspectives. For example, is an opportunity to have the skills of building a community that supports each other. So that's the first thought that comes. I will see where their own need is coming from and what is behind their desire that Tom should let go. And why does it matter for Tom? For everybody to share why something matters. You remember in the contracting, the psychological contract, it's okay, you know, these are my expectations, these are my hopes, these are my desires, these are my fears, these are my concerns. And everybody can share and they can listen and they can understand each other. Let me pause here. If you want to translate.
Yes，刚刚提到一个词就是 compassion，就是要有共情。那关于就是这位刚刚那个问题是，那就是在一所大学里面，就是因为有一个博士生，他可能因为各种各样的因素他可能就是最好的方式是休息一段时间不是继续就是继续学业。那但是他自己可能意识不到自己的状态其实不行了，然后就不是很适合继续在高压力的环境之中但是呢，他在自己的观念之中还是非常想要坚持下去。那就是那带他的博士导师呢，他有可能就是知道他的情况，那他和一些就是其他的一些博士生就想要一起去就是给这位就是 Tom 给建议，就是那么他们之间可能会就是有一些冲突大冲突或者小冲突等等那就是 Katerina 是如何看待这个事情，然后面对这种情况，那应该要如何解决从不同的就是利益相关者来看是怎么样去解决这个事情。那 Katerina 觉得就是最好的方式是要共情，那就是首先要了解各位的状态是什么样的，从不同的从不同的角度去了解，就像刚刚在就是讲座中提到的那5大韧性的能力模型，从不同的角度去了解。尤其是导师，那你作为一位导师的话，你要去深入去了解你的学员你的就是博士生学生就是了解他背后需要的支持是什么，你的需求是什么就像刚刚就是看到的一个就是我们就是在教练辅导和导师辅导之中要建立心理契约。那心理契约中就可能就是要了解，就是我们要去深入去了解 Tom 这个人他的期待是什么他的就是一些诉求是什么，然后他想要什么，他的期待是什么等等要就是全方位的去关注他内心的需求。
And the other question is like, are they an interconnected team in the sense that if Tom is left behind, everybody's left behind. So they need each other to graduate. If that's the case, and they are as a team in that, how the mentor has supported their own sense of one entity. Because what is observed here is the subgroup of the strong students, and then the weak student, Tom. And that is about team dynamics. So this is an example where a team coach or their mentor will work on the dynamics of the teams and what's really going on here.
那我们就是要关注一下就是不同学员之间的一种动态关系。Tom 他可能就是在这个团队当中，他可能是比较落后的，那其他的人呢，可能就是还是保持在前面。那很可能 Tom 的落后会导致其他团队可能就是也会没有那么就是没有那么一直往前进。那所以说，作为导师呢，他们的导师就要了解到，其实这是一个很正常的状态，因为它就是团队的一种动态的一种模式。
I hope that was helpful, Min.
Yes, yeah.
Do you have other questions?
Yeah, I think from the comments from the chat box, what is a resilient team look like? I think you have answered this question in your webinar. So
Yes.
so due to the yes, yeah. So due to the time limit, let's call it a day. Yes.
May I say that there are no recipes. We can have ideas, we can have approach, we need to keep an open mind, and we need to be curious and with the intention to stay and really understand understand and help the team understand what's really going on here and what is needed in every situation.
所以说最重要的是我们要保持好奇心。那我们要知道就是事情的发展是多样的，我们要保持好奇心，然后要真正的去理解究竟发生了什么，然后现在的情况是怎么样的。Yes. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
So Tiffany, do you have any question from your side? Okay. So thank you very much, Katerina.
It was my pleasure.
So I will continue my introduction.那感谢大家今天来听这个讲座。那您可以看到刚刚那位是大师级的教练。那如果您对EMCC 欧洲导师与教练协会的国际认证导师感兴趣，那欢迎您扫码去深入的了解什么是导师。那导师能够真正帮助到您什么？那其实，在我们导师界呢，有5句金句第一呢是选对方向，导师首要的任务是帮助学员明确发展的方向就是少走弯路。那如果方向错了，与结果会渐行渐远。方向确定之后，导师他会激励挖掘学员的无限潜能，令其快速有效的达成目标。那第二点就是导师能帮助你就是在辅导过程中不仅仅他强调达成目标，他更注重达成目标的过程当中能够提升学员的能量级和状态。第三点是导师可以帮助学员发现并且激活内在和外在的资源，可以获得更多的支持。第4点呢是导师辅导过程中，关键绩效指标、关键行为指标和投资回报率均可以被有效的计量和比较。那第5点也是最重要的一点，也是最新颖的一点，是导师辅导中的一个特色技能，就是隐形知识萃取。那懂得萃取的专业导师，他不仅仅传承自己的经验和智慧， 它可以通过萃取他人的技能传承给学员。那如果您对国际认证导师感兴趣，请扫码关注。那我们11月将开课，同时您可以关注一下我们的微信 Mentor&Co 导师学员。那刚刚呢，您有就是听到关于隐形知识。隐形知识，什么是隐形知识呢？它其实就是资深人士将资深人士脑中的不可言说的一些智慧经验，通过一系列的综合技术萃取出来复制给到您，让您减少试错的成本，更高效、快速的实现自己的目标。那这次告诉大家一个好消息，就是组织隐形技能管理全球智库将在欧洲瑞士达沃斯举办第1届隐形知识管理论坛。那就是这个组织隐形知识管理全球智库呢目前有来自30多个国家的近70名专家。那到时候我们达沃斯论坛不仅仅这些专家会去，而且会有很多全球的顶尖领袖也会莅临到现场。那当然呢，您不用担心，如果您没办法就是去到现场，我们独家开放了线上的通道，您可以扫码了解关注一下这个参会详情和门票信息。我相信呢，您可以听起来隐形知识管理是妙不可言只要您能够踏出了解的那一步，我相信这个结果不会让您失望。那当然呢，如果您现在就扫码关注的话，联系工作人员，您有机会可以得到免费的线上直播票。那价值99欧元，机不可失。那接下来是我们的下期预告，我们下期呢是在国庆节之后是第61场，是来自于 Sam 博士，他是联合利华的全球教练主管，也是一家叫做 Great 有限公司的董事总经理，同时呢，他拥有教练督导的专业的博士学位。如果您对他感兴趣，请扫码预约下一期的讲座。同时呢，今天我们的讲座就告尾声了，感谢您的聆听。那请您留下宝贵的建议，